Hello friends and welcome to another quick MarioMayhem.com video. Get your turnip removing gloves ready because it's time to delve into the weird, wacky and wonderful world of Super Mario Bros. 2 with these 9 awesome facts. Starting with number 9, Super Mario USA. Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually known as Super Mario USA in Japan. The title Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan is what most of us know as the Lost Levels from Super Mario All-Stars, which is essentially a harder version of the original Super Mario Bros. Game. Because Japan already had the Mario sequel, it wasn't until nearly 4 years later that they received what the Western world knows as Super Mario Bros. 2. To put that in perspective, Japan had received Super Mario Bros. 2 after the release of Super Mario World. Number 8, Primitive Prototype. There is an old prototype cartridge of Super Mario Bros. 2 that shows a number of different changes to the final release. For example, the title screen was presented in a sepia tone, the bonus screen was much simpler, and there were various other sprites and map changes throughout. Interestingly, it looks like the sepia title screen may have influenced the final version of the bonus game. Number 7, Distinct Luigi. Prior to the release of Super Mario Bros. 2 in 1988, Luigi was an exact clone of Mario. But now he was taller, had his own distinct behaviours, and was just overall more Luigi than he was before. Along with this introduction of the more lovable Luigi character, this game also gave us a few more enemies that have become synonymous with the Mario franchise. These include Bob-ombs, Shy Guys, Pokey, and of course, Birdo. Number 6, It All Never Happened. If you haven't played Super Mario Bros. 2 and you want to keep the plot details a secret, now might be a good time to close your ears. Super Mario Bros. 2 never happened. In case this ending scene didn't give it away, the game manual does more than hint at the fact that the entire game happened in Mario's subconscious. In fact, the opening lines read, "One evening Mario had a strange dream." This is one of those things you probably took with a grain of salt as a kid, but it's actually a pretty mind-blowing storyline when you think about it in retrospect. Number 5, Birdo is actually a boy. If we take a closer look at the Super Mario Bros. 2 game manual, again it actually sheds some light on the much debated topic of Birdo's gender. The booklet states that Birdo is a boy who believes that he is a girl and spits eggs from his mouth. In later releases of the game, however, there is no longer any mention of his gender, even in the manuals. Number 4, Underwater Remix. Have a closer jam to the Super Mario Bros. 2 title music. It is actually a remix of the underwater theme from the original Super Mario Bros. Game. At number 3 we have Link's Awakening. There seems to be a bit of an interesting crossover between Super Mario Bros. 2 and Link's Awakening. As it turns out, Wart is actually the same character as Mamu in Link's Awakening. This makes even more sense when you know that Wart's name in Japanese is also Mamu. On top of this character crossover, both games also take place in dream worlds, with Link's Awakening happening on an island created by the Windfish's dreaming, and Super Mario 2 simply taking place in Mario's subconscious dream. Number 2, Game Credit Mistakes. Perhaps caused by the haste of the release, there are a few mistakes in the game's credits. Birdo and Ostro had their names mixed up, Hoopster's name was misspelled, and Claw Grip is known as Claw Glip. Interestingly, these mistakes were not fixed when the game was ported and remain in the Super Mario All-Stars version. And finally at number 1 we have Doki Doki Panic. Well, some of you probably knew this one was coming, but there's a little bit of a twist. For those of you that didn't know about Super Mario Bros. 2 not being an original game, however, it's actually an upgraded version of a Japanese game named Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which roughly translates to Dream Factory Heart-Pounding Panic. This remake replaced the existing characters with Mario ones, but also left some of its original charm behind. As mentioned at number 9, this remake wasn't released until later in Japan because the Lost Levels had been released as the Super Mario Bros. Sequel instead. What I didn't mention, however, was that Nintendo actually created Super Mario Bros. 2 because the Lost Levels was considered too hard for the Western audience at the time. There is some dispute as to whether this makes Super Mario Bros. 2 a true sequel to Super Mario Bros. Or not, but there is some pretty good evidence to suggest it actually is. A little while after the original Mario game was released, Nintendo's research and development team in Kyoto started work on a new Mario game engine that incorporated vertical scrolling as well as horizontal. This prototype game engine based its gameplay around throwing items, carrying things, and even featured a two-player co-op that allowed you to throw other players to hard-to-reach places. Shortly after development began, a deal was made with Fuji TV, and this prototype became Doki Doki Panic, featuring the company's mascots as characters, but sadly dropping the two-player co-op. But who led this game's development? Shigeru Miyamoto, of course. In fact, he has even said he spent more time working on Doki Doki Panic than he did on the Japanese Mario sequel Lost Levels. So even though the game was slightly hijacked by another company, one could easily argue that Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually a true Super Mario Bros. Sequel. Anyway, that's it for today, guys, so let's take a look at your responses to our previous question of the day, which was, if you had your own warp whistle, where would you warp to and why? Thanks again to everyone for your awesome comments last video, they're so much appreciated. So here are a few honourable mentions from our last video for everyone to enjoy. So Bunny Games said they'd simply warp to Narnia. I thought that was a pretty great answer. The Joker made fun of our last question and said he'd warp to Luigi's mansion to be a ghost boss. I thought that was a pretty amusing answer. Wigglesome Pro says they'd go to the library to find out why they have a warp whistle. That's also pretty amusing. Joel went pretty out of the box and said he'd warp inside Area 51, ready to stream everything with his camera. But the Luigi clap goes today to Mario Casillas, and I swear that's no bias again. He says he would warp to Miyamoto's home and hug him to death for making great games. Not sure about the to death part, but maybe giving him a hug or buying a beer is a pretty good way to use your warp whistle. So thanks everyone again for your comments. All much appreciated. And today we'll leave you with the question, if you could replace turnips in Super Mario Bros. 2, what would you have Mario throw instead? So let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and the best, most creative answer will be featured in our next video. Don't be afraid to like other people's comments as well if you think they're good. Everyone likes to get a like. And that's it for today, friends. I hope you enjoyed these 9 crazy Super Mario Bros. 2 facts. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with your friends if you can. Keep those comments and likes coming, and we'll see you soon.